Hi there everyone and welcome once again to the TrainAid HQ. My name is Nick and in today's video we're looking at the Level 4 Certificate in Education and Training, and we're going to be looking at assignment number 4, and that is assessing learners in education and training. So this assignment is going to be focusing on assessment and the different methods of assessment within education and training. In terms of this assignment, please use the Angravels textbook. Pages 148 to 187 is a chapter all about assessment. Okay, in terms of a word count for this assignment, roughly 2,000 to 3,000 words as a minimum. Of course, you can write more than that in terms of the word count. In terms of references, we are expected to see a minimum of 4 references. Those can of course be textbooks, there can be websites as well. Furthermore, we'd also like for you to write in the first or the third person, so you could reflect on your own teaching and training experiences to date, and also reflect on things you would perhaps like to trial in the future as well. Okay. Furthermore, do include any photos, images, and any screenshots as well to further your points, okay, to do with assessing. And finally, please send your assignment into us at CET@train-aid.co.uk in order to receive feedback within 5 working days. Okay, so we're just going to move on to our first question. Okay, this question, the criteria states, explain the purposes of types of assessment used in education and training. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the different purposes of assessment within teaching and training. So as we know, there are a variety of different assessments, as we know, initial, formative and summative. We have a range of purposes and also methods as well. We're just going to start off with what is the purpose of assessment within education and training. So why does it take place? As an informal assessment practice. Okay, so informal, it's simply checking the learners to see what information they've retained, and also perhaps formal as well. Okay, so when we come to perhaps the end of a course or qualification, summative, can the learners perhaps demonstrate and replicate their skills that they've learned? Have they passed? Okay, so think about the very much the values, the purposes of assessment here as a starting point. Furthermore, how does assessment help learners? Okay, perhaps it gives them perhaps motivation, encouragement, okay, if they don't perhaps understand something, okay, and if they get perhaps a question wrong, okay, it's not a problem, okay, so with constructive feedback, they can see how to improve their skills, their knowledge, okay, whatever it is they are perhaps focusing on. So think about all of the key benefits to the learner of assessment. Furthermore, we'd like for you to explain the principles of assessment, okay? So VACSR and also SMART as well. So we would like for you to reflect on these principles, okay? So valid, authentic, current, sufficient and also reliable, and also to explain SMART as well, SMART targets. What do they mean? What does that mean? And how do you implement these principles in your own teaching and also assessing as well? Okay, do you set your learners perhaps SMART targets during ILPs? Do you set them targets for them to achieve as well? So think about those principles that you use. Furthermore, we're looking at what initial assessment methods you use within your own teaching. So we have had a look at initial assessment at the beginning of the course. We would like for you to explain it once again, and to say what initial assessment methods you use within your own teaching. Okay, are they successful? What works well with them? Okay, so following on from initial assessment that we do at the start of a course or qualification, we're looking at formative assessment now. So this is otherwise known as on-course assessment. Okay, formative assessment happens during a course. We're checking learners' understanding, okay, in the here and now. So perhaps nominated questions, open questions, quizzes, activities, all of those methods are going to see whether your learners have taken on board what you're saying to them, perhaps your teaching methods, are they effective? Okay, so all of those formative methods are going to be extremely valuable. So what is a formative assessment? Why is it used? what formative assessment methods do you employ within your own teaching and why? Okay, so perhaps reflect on perhaps 3 or 4 different examples there. What are your favourite formative methods? And finally, summative assessment. This happens very much at the end of a course or qualification. They're often more formal, and the traditional ones, of course, are the exams. It could be a portfolio of assignments. Okay, they're all handed in perhaps at once. Okay, it could be perhaps a presentation, a final observation. Okay, and these once again are very much done at the end of a course. Okay, so perhaps explain why these are used. What does it mean, and also what summative assessments happen within your own teaching, and explain sort of once again the advantages and limitations of those summative assessments as well. And finally, holistic assessment. What does that mean and why is it used? Okay, so think about whether you can use a holistic assessment within your teaching and training. Are there any opportunities for you to perhaps countersign or cross-reference learner work so that you can see that their skills can be transitioned perhaps into another assignment or another element of the course? So are there any sort of ways that you can promote holistic assessment within your own teaching? We would like for you to reflect on all of the sort of focuses on assessment here, and we're looking for between 500 to 1,000 words. Please have a look at pages 151 to 152 to give you some more information about assessment methods. We're just going to move on to criteria 1.2, analyse the effectiveness of assessment methods in relation to meeting the individual needs of learners. Okay, so what we are looking for here is once again for you to choose 4 different assessment methods, and you can select from initial, formative, summative, and also holistic as well. Okay, so you can have a range of different methods, any 4. Okay, it can be from a variety of different methods, or perhaps you can stick with 4 formative and 4 summative, for example, any 4. And what we are doing here is we are going to explain the assessment method in detail. Okay, so again, you could reflect on your own personal experiences here. Okay, so for example, observation. When do you use this and why? And what considerations do you make when using the methods? Okay, so perhaps think about the learner's individual needs. Okay, all of the perhaps administration, everything that goes in sort of leading up to the assessment. How do you prepare learners for that assessment? What are the strengths of the assessment? Okay, so why is it effective? Okay, and also perhaps the drawbacks or the limitations of that assessment. So for example, observations, learners could perhaps get nerves about this assessment method. Okay, so we're going into more detail from our first answer, and we are really sort of focusing on a minimum of 4 here, looking at the strengths and the limitations. Okay, so this is going to be a minimum of 500 to 1,000 words. Please have a look at pages 156 to 160 there as well. You can of course create perhaps a table with the different methods that you use, and also reflecting on the strengths and limitations there. Okay, so we're just going to move on to the next criteria, and that is to identify the internal and external assessment requirements and related procedures of learning programs. Okay, so we're going to be looking at 2 key terms in this assignment question. The 2 key terms are internal assessment and also external assessment. Okay, so what does the term internal assessment within education and training mean? So internal is very much assessments within your own organisation. Okay, so these could be tests, they could be observations created by you. Okay, these could be both informal, they could be formal. Okay, they are very much devised by yourself. It could be perhaps a multiple choice questionnaire that you create and put together as perhaps a formative method there. So what different internal assessment methods do you employ within your own teaching? What has worked for you? Okay, what are the benefits of these internal assessment methods? Are there any problems or limitations with this type of assessment method. Okay, so it could be some problems there with over assessing your learners perhaps, but think about your own organization. What do they employ? Okay, what has worked? Okay, again, it could be sort of formative assessment methods, things that you do perhaps day to day as well. We're also looking at the term external assessment. So first of all, we're going to be explaining what external assessment methods means within education and training. So external means very much outside assessments. This could be perhaps a formal exam. It could be in like an EV or an invigilator coming in, perhaps observing perhaps your learners as well. So these are perhaps more formal, a bit more summative here as well. Okay, they could happen perhaps at the end of a course. Okay, it could be exam results, or it could be question papers that you send off to an exam board, for example. So these are going to be perhaps a little bit more formal. Okay, it could be perhaps assignments that you send off of learner work each year, perhaps to an external body, okay, an awarding body for them to sample your learners perhaps. Okay, and what we'd like for you to do is to explain what different external assessment methods do you employ within your own teaching, what are the benefits, and also what are the limitations of this method, and also do you have to work with other staff members or colleagues to arrange external assessment methods as well. So it could be a visit from the exam board. What procedures do you go through here? What's worked well in the past? Okay, how do you prepare for an external assessment? Okay. Just moving on to our final question, we are looking at analyse ways in which minimum core elements can be demonstrated in assessing learners. Okay, so throughout the course we've looked at the minimum core, but we're now focusing on how you promote the minimum core within assessing of learners. Okay, so literacy, how do you demonstrate literacy within your own teaching when assessing learners? So this could be you as a teacher reading questions to your group of learners. So it could be reading perhaps mock exam paper questions, for example, assignment briefs if they're doing some coursework. So you're reading it to learners to promote their understanding. Numeracy, how do you promote numeracy within assessing? So it could be reading to learners the grading criteria, so they understand perhaps what sort of grades, what sort of areas that they need to focus on and achieve, and also promoting peer and self-assessment as well, so that ways that they can promote understanding of the criteria. Again, it could be language. Okay, so it could be you use role plays, presentations, discussions, Q&A, and verbal feedback, okay, as assessment methods. And you could, of course, sort of promote one-to-one feedback, verbal feedback on perhaps an observation that shows that you are providing constructive feedback to your learners that way. So all the language skills that you're promoting. And finally, ICT. So how do you use ICT or digital skills with assessing your learners? So it could be using recording devices to record evidence of perhaps a summative assessment or observation that you have to store and upload, or perhaps give that recording to an awarding body as evidence, for example. Okay, it could be uploading sort of videos or exam results to a VLE system. And all of those devices used to perhaps store and record evidence as well. Okay, we'd like for you to reflect on assessing, and we would like for you to perhaps have a minimum of 500 to 1,000 words within this section of the assignment, and aim for textbook page 169 to 170 is going to give you some helpful hints and advice there. Okay. So that is it for this assignment, looking at assessment. We would like for you to send in, of course, your questions to the CET team, okay, and they will provide you with constructive feedback. And of course, please progress to your next assignment.